art can mean different things to different people. For me, it's all about the joy of creating. So if you draw, paint, write, dance, sing, craft, play air guitar, or even sculpt using nothing but mashed potatoes, consider yourself an artist and join the conversation. For the next half hour, meet the artist, learn about their inspiration, and enjoy the beauty of creativity. Welcome to Art Talk with John Cole Artist. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for tuning in tonight. Today is June 6th, 2023, I believe, which is only 3 weeks away from my birthday, so make sure you send me gifts and give me cards and stuff. I would appreciate that. Tonight, I have a real privilege to speak with a good friend of mine who I've known for a number of years now. We work together. She's prior Coast Guard. I'm prior Coast Guard. Tamara Koermer, make sure I say it right. I want to welcome you to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time out to spend talking with me a little bit about your art.
Well, mahalo nui loa and aloha from Hawaii, John, and all the listeners out there. Really great to be here. It's a privilege, and it's great to see your face again, John. It's been a minute, I think.
It has been, but I have been following pretty closely with you and your husband on Facebook, social media specifically, right? Facebook, and your adventures with bike riding, your adventures all over the place, really.
Travel is a passion for both of us, and so we retired early. We live small, but adventure big, we like to say. So yeah, we've really enjoyed the opportunities the last few years have given us.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Plus you're on Oahu, which is near and dear to my heart. I mean, I got to spend 3 years there, and I did not want to leave once I got there. I mean, it's not only the weather, but it's the culture and the people as well, right?
Yeah, I think it's the best climate in the world, to be frank. We've had the opportunity to travel a bit, and we decided to move back here and retire because we were so busy working. We didn't have time to do all the things we wanted to do, the hiking, biking, scuba diving. And, you know, we've explored even more things since we've moved back and been able to play full time, so to speak.
Right, right. And I also was, I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was really interested to see when you started posting pictures of some of the artwork that you're doing now. Is art something that's new to you, or is it something that you've been
Painting is definitely new to me.
Right.
And I think I've surprised myself, John. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I thought I had some creative things to explore, and I think I even talked about it in my retirement speech, you know, however many years ago, 2013. But I think it was more recently in COVID that I had so much downtime. I was chewing my arm off, so I needed to, and I had an inspiration, and I just kind of fell into it, and have continued to explore that artistic side of me that really was kind of dormant for a long time because I was just too busy raising kids and
Right.
Coast Guard job, and you know, there were other things that followed on my Coast Guard retirement. So I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I think that you definitely, without question, have a talent for it, because the things that I'm looking at are, and I'll put some up on the screen here in a little bit. First, my wife Christine says, "Hello, beautiful soul."
Aloha, Christine. Good to talk to you too.
Yeah, but yeah, no, I mean, I am. And like I said, I'll bring some pictures here up in a second, but geez, I'm at a loss for words here. You seem to be able to like tap into all these different styles and really create some very beautiful pieces. Now, do you think that living on Oahu has something to do with the inspiration for this?
I never really considered that. Certainly the palette here in the tropics or near tropics on Oahu has inspired me. The colors I'm wearing, they're in my house. I really enjoy the vibrancy of the greens and the blues and all the flora and fauna. So maybe, but I've never really identified specifically with that.
Okay, well that's good, because I know that one of my big things is, for me to paint, I need that inspiration of sorts, right? And
oh yes, that's true of me. I don't paint when I don't feel like it, you know.
Right.
I need to be inspired. And I think I wasn't really, I never considered picking up a paintbrush really until I was inspired by, this is going to make you laugh, but a phone wallpaper of this big wave in Waimea Bay on the North Shore.
Mm-hmm.
And it was crashing. It was so beautiful. It was a lot of the colors in the palette you see on my dress. And I'm like, and so I'm just sitting in the bathroom downstairs, and I was like, this is an awesome photo. I was really absorbed by this photo for a long time, but I'm like, what am I, so I put it on my phone, and that's cool. I put it on my desktop, that's cool. But no, I wanted to see if I could recreate it.
Mm-hmm.
And the motion and the energy communicated by the wave in this picture. And and I looked over, and there's this little small door that goes into a closet under the stairs, and that door's about the right size, size and shape. I'm gonna paint that door. so I took myself down to like Ben Franklin is the local place, and I said, yeah, I'm gonna do this. And I just jumped in with both feet, and I was really happy with how it turned out. Certainly could improve upon it if I redid it today with a little practice and knowledge, but I was really happy with it, and it went from there.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of that, and actually, I may end up bringing those pictures up in a bit, because I think it looks like you did the technique where you have the image and then you kind of grid it.
I did a grid because the curves were so complicated, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the only way I knew to communicate that, to put it up there. And so it's very much not a restoration. I'm drawing a blank now. Menopause fog.
Well, it's basically just it's a reproduction of a
reproduction,
picture, but larger, right?
Yeah.
We got you covered. Yeah, and that's really a very well-known artistic technique when you're working from small scale to large scale. As a matter of fact, I think back in '83 when I graduated high school, or probably the year before that, because that was really the last time I did art, was back in the '80s, and then of course Coast Guard career, right? Life happens. But yeah, I remember using the grid technique for that. I did have an opportunity to paint something on a wall when I was in Boston, but I decided to print everything out, tape everything together, and then do like a charcoal tracing type thing. Horrible way to do this. Horrible way to do business when you're working that big. But the way you did it's like spot on, and I think that the painting turned out really, really spectacular, quite frankly.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm happy with it. Some days I sit in that same little room and I'm like, I would like to redo that, but I've already sealed it and everything, so it's like it's gonna stay. And if we ever move from this place, that door is going with me. I'll have to buy a new one.
I was gonna say, I see there's a door right behind you. It looks like that's perfectly ready. It's a blank canvas.
Oh, right? Yeah, it's actually textured. It's got a bunch of panels. It would be challenging.
Yeah. Now, are you painting in acrylic paint? Is that what you're painting?
I am. Yes. Almost exclusively. I wasn't really interested in watercolors and oils. You got to have mineral spirits and a bunch of other things. And I was painting in my office, so I just have like a painter's canvas on the floor. I didn't really, being that acrylic was water-based, and I love the vibrancy of acrylics.
Right.
So I think I might explore some other things later, but I'm loving it right now. And I didn't want to overinvest in a bunch of different media when I wasn't even sure if I wanted to continue.
Right. Well, I definitely think that you should continue. That's just my 2 cents. And I think the acrylic is probably, I'm not gonna say it's the hardest to work in, but it would be second hardest because I've dabbled in watercolor, acrylic, and oil.
Yeah.
And if I were to, this is just me, of course, I'm not, because I think acrylic can sometimes be a little more tricky because it has a faster drying time unless you mix it with an extender or something to.
Yes, I definitely have learned that there's a downside to acrylics. And our fellow former Coastie, and now retired, Amy Barabo, who's a very accomplished artist. If you haven't interviewed her.
I have not, no.
Okay, her name is, on Facebook, it's A Barabo, Baribeau. Kokenauer is her last name, her married name. So she and I were like, she was my second roommate in the Coast Guard. We were 18. Wow. But she's always been a great artist. And she said to me, she goes, "Oh, I'm so afraid to work with acrylics because they dry so fast." And I think that's both an advantage and a disadvantage, because if you make a mistake with acrylics, you don't have to wait a long time for them to dry. You can just paint over it and do it again. So I think I've tried to think about the advantages. I've also learned there's several medias or additives you can use to extend the time so you can do more blending. I
Right,
think it's
right.
most challenging when you're trying to blend something. And so that's where I'm trying to expand my skill set right now, is in the blending, using some of those media and improving my technique. And then I started, I was using paper plates for my palette. Boy, what a revelation a wet palette is. So if for anyone who's not familiar with a wet palette, they're used a lot in acrylics to keep the paint viable.
Mhm.
It's basically a plastic tray with a flat little sponge like a chamois. You soak that up, and then you put palette paper over the top, which remains moist and continues to sponge up from that chamois. And then mine has a tight lid, so I
Mhm.
can have the same paints on the palette and work on something for almost a week.
Wow. Now, see, I don't,
So,
I'm not familiar with that. I've never, I don't know, maybe I've seen that at art supply stores and stuff, but I never put two
yeah,
and two together. So
I think
that
I've got
sounds
it.
great, especially with working with acrylic.
Yeah, and there's all sorts. You don't have to spend a lot. I've I'm starting to look at ones that I've always wanted to paint in plain air, and
Mhm.
I've tried to do that outside with acrylics. I did it outside one time on a vacation up on a little staycation up on the other side of the island, and I was painting on just a paper plate. Oh, the worst I've ever done, because I was scrubbing off the paint as it was
Yeah.
drying as I'm trying to put more on. It was horrible. But now I've learned, yeah, the wet palette's way to go. So if I could get one that's small enough to like carry, that would be cool. Mine at home is pretty big, so
Yeah.
great for home, but I wouldn't want to like haul it somewhere to paint.
Yeah. I love that idea because that's where I do my paintings, in my office space, right? Because this is my computer desk that I'm looking at you, but
Yeah,
right
me too.
there,
Yeah,
that's my art
mine's right
table
here.
and all
It's
that other
all
stuff.
in 2 for 1, 3 for 1, right?
Yeah, it's nice if you like that cozy feel, right? Because everything's right here. But yeah, if you're going to, like, if I want to move and go do it someplace else, like I'm planning on doing a little bit of art on this trip. I'm bringing, but I'm not. I'm just bringing watercolor, which, getting
Yeah.
back to what I was saying earlier, in my opinion, is the hardest medium to work with.
You think
Um,
watercolor's the hardest?
I do.
I that's why I kind of stayed away from it too.
Yeah,
I have some friends who have taken some lessons and experiment in that. You can produce some amazing things, but manipulating the right level of ink,
right.
right?
Hmm.
With the right level of water, it
Yep.
takes a lot more finesse, I think, than I was willing to mess around with. But someday, maybe.
I have no doubt that you will, because I think, because it's like with oil, right? Because oil is probably one of the hardest to work with for two reasons, right? Number one, it does have a slow drying time, and you can speed that up a little bit.
Mm.
But then the other thing is, unlike acrylic, because acrylic you would tend to paint from light to dark. That's kind of like a general rule of
Actually, my
thumb.
teacher has us going from dark to light.
Really, because I know
Yeah.
if you have a dark color and you try to apply a lighter color or shade on top, sometimes that
Mm.
darker color will appear through. Now, I'm not saying there's a right or wrong. That's just the
No,
way I
no,
understand
I
it.
don't think in art there's any one or wrong or right way. It's what works for you for what you're
Exactly.
looking for, the end product.
Right. Now, one thing though that I did learn recently, that just, again, it's one of those things that just never crossed my mind, and that is to combine acrylic and oil.
Combine acrylic and what?
Acrylic and oil painting. Because,
Oh,
see, 'cause oil does give you that advantage of the blending, right? So
mm-hmm.
it might have been on TikTok or something, somebody was talking where you could do your base painting in acrylic, right? Because acrylic tends to be a little less expensive than oil paint.
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm.
You do your basic painting, and once that's dry, you go back and then you add the details with oil, where you get a
So for
smoother.
the main subject, you might do it in oil. Oh, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, that's
I'd
really,
have to
really
buy a whole
interesting.
new set of brushes, and my husband has put a. I have to admit, for a while there, I was like, do do I like shopping for art supplies as much as I like painting? I'm not sure. It might be 50-50.
Could be. Yeah, sometimes shopping for art supplies is a lot of fun. I know Christine and I will go to Michael's or someplace like that
Yeah.
and walk away with a lot more than what we intended to
Oh yeah.
pay for. But um, you know what? If you don't mind, I'm going to bring up some of your pictures, some of
Sure.
your paintings. Maybe we could address that a little bit. I'd love to hear a little more about them. Now, these are not in any particular order. But maybe if we could start with this one here, is this a more recent one, or was this an earlier one?
Yeah, this is more recent. I think I did that one in February. It's a reproduction of Van Gogh's irises, and it was a specific lesson by my favorite art teacher, the Art Sherpa. She is fantastic.
Was that an in-person class, or was that an
Oh
online?
no, it's online streaming. Actually, she has a YouTube channel, and I can stop her lesson and finish up my technique and then go on to the next step with her at my own speed. I found it to be very good. And I've taken from a couple teachers, some in person and some online, and she by far is the best for what I'm trying to learn, and her technique and explanation, etc.
So you basically just watch the video and wow, this is why, folks, this is the value, I think, of not only things like YouTube and the internet, but also taking the time to sit down and really listen and then reproduce. And there's a real advantage with that. I think sometimes we want to do our own thing. We want to create our own images. And I think that's great. But sometimes it helps to do things like this because you get used to the media, you get used to working in that type of environment, because painting specifically doesn't come to all people as an inherent ability. That does take practice, is what I guess that's what I'm going. Guess where?
I found learning with her very easy. She's been doing this for probably a decade, right? She might have been working in one of those paint and sip studios before. Mm-hmm. Anyone who's interested in trying acrylics, I check out the Art Sherpa. I love her so much. I'm a patron, so I pay because I think she's got such value. Most of her lessons are free, by and large, like over 1,800. It sounds like I'm giving a commercial for her, but I'm just so enthusiastic about her. Mm-hmm. I pay a monthly subscription to support her because I think she does such great work. Oh. Now, one more thing about this painting is this was the first time I used a traceable. So the Art Sherpa will do a traceable and provide it to you. And before, I'd always kind of freehanded it, and mm-hmm. I enjoyed that, and I was kind of surprised at what I was able to produce, because I didn't really expect that I had those skills in me. But so I used the traceable because I love Van Gogh, and I wanted it to be as true to his original as I could be. And I found that to be very helpful.
Okay, could you explain to us what a traceable is real quick?
Okay, so a traceable is there's a paper called Saran, transfer paper. Hold on just a minute.
Sure.
Oh, Saral. Okay. So what you do is you take, so this is Saral paper, and it's just on, the stuff I bought is just on a roll. And what you do is you put your canvas or whatever you're going to use paint on, actually. Mm-hmm. You put the Saral paper down, and then you put your traceable on, and then you just write over the traceable, and it transfers the tiniest bit of color from this transfer paper onto your canvas.
Right.
And so you have an outline when you start painting.
I love that. And that does help. It really does.
Right. There are other ways to do it. I've learned that there's things called a light box. Yep. And I recently bought one of those, but this is pretty easy and cheap way to start with if you want to start with some sort of image.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's another that goes along with like the grid business. There's a lot of different ways to get that starting point, which is really important. This one here, this is a pear, and I love this. It's the rich colors in here. There's the geometry, the shape, the movement. Can we speak to this for a few seconds? Would you mind?
Sure. So this is one of those that I did for Acrylic April, and that was Acrylic April 2023 with the Art Sherpa, the whole month. She has you're supposed to paint every day, and she has a new design and lesson for every day. That's day 9. She was exploring abstracts, which I wasn't like super excited about.
Right.
But I got to try a bunch of different techniques, including palette knife, which I wanted to explore a little bit. Not very common in acrylics. Mm-hmm. It's more common with like oil painting, but acrylics is actually well suited for for palette knife because it dries so fast and you can continue to layer on the paint at a faster rate than you could with oils. So this one is, again, her design, and I followed her lesson. There are elements that are my technique, I guess. You know, the squiggles on the right side of the piece are just my handiwork. Like, that makes sense to me. That's what my hand put out that day.
Right.
And then there are aspects of the checkerboard that I did my own way, with some variation in colors from her lesson. But by and large, it's her design, and I did it for the experience.
Well, it's a beautiful piece. I mean, it really is very,
Thank you,
very
Don. I
pretty.
appreciate that.
And then it's like we shift styles. So this looks like this is a day 10. So this was another one where with the
you might consider a little Pablo Picasso. What is the cubism? Maybe a little bit. It's a straight abstract, and I used a new device that I had not, a new piece that I had not used before. It was a Posca pen. So
yes.
this is actually an acrylic pen that works just like a marker. So I did the white outlines with that one. I chose some different color palette than she did. So here's me starting to experiment, getting a little more confident with my choices and with my own hand. I haven't done maybe one or two of my own designs. So again, this is her design and a great lesson. I loved it.
And what is this on canvas or is this on paper? What's this?
I don't remember. Most of these I did on paper.
Right.
Canvas paper, because I know I was going to do so many and I didn't want to buy that many canvas, to be frank, and I wasn't sure. Yeah, it's canvas paper. So here's the one you're showing.
Oh, there it is.
And this paper is it's acrylic, acid-free, heavyweight paper.
From Ben Franklin.
Yeah.
I remember that place from when I was on the island.
So I just taped it off to get the square because this is a 9x12, and and all her designs were 8x8, so I can get a nice edge.
And then let's see. This is probably my favorite of what you sent. So here's my interpretation, then you can tell me. This looks to me like a ship on the left.
Yeah, right? I thought it kind of looked like that too.
Yeah, I mean, so how was this just a straight up abstraction, or was there a?
It was a straight up abstraction. Again, a lesson. A lot of practice in the blending in the background, which was fun. I was happy with how that turned out. So we were using palette knife and sorry, I got a leaf blower outside.
Oh, that's right.
It's our condo's day to have the landscapers here, and I'm thankful. They do a great job. But you might hear it in the background. Yeah, so I look at this one and I thought of a ship, but then I thought of when I was all done, I thought of two tikis. You know, a tiki, like they're common here in Hawaii. It's a Polynesian carving, that kind of a face. They often put them on the edge of their villages to scare away evil spirits. Two tikis talking. The bigger one's really angry, and the other one is, you know, talking a blue streak like sometimes children do, right? And all those ideas, colorful as they are, escaping into the air around them.
Right.
So you could, but it does kind of look like a ship, like you're like a tall ship, you know, with you've got the mast and then the yard arms across for the bigger one. So it could be either things. And one of the things that this wasn't supposed to be an objective piece. I wasn't trying to portray any particular object. It was purely abstract. But one of the things I learned from the art Sherpa, her name is Cinnamon Cooney, is that abstract art is supposed to draw out your emotions rather than a thought about a particular object. And so for me, this is, in looking at this, I thought of a larger person and a smaller person, the smaller person being very effusive, the joy of just hearing their wild ideas.
Right.
And sometimes you get a little pissed off, right? So maybe those black lines represent like the frustration of the larger person trying to tell the younger person, just listen to me, gosh darn it, kind of thing.
Right. I, I, I love it. And
Thank
then
you.
so we'll look at a couple more. People are messy. This one's titled. And by the way, Christine says your paintings are magical, and I agree.
Oh, let me know if she wants any of them. I'll send it to you.
Okay. Yeah, people are messy. That's they are.
That is a phrase that my husband and I love. I mean,
Mhm.
you had this experience maybe too, John, being a senior officer and being a manager of people. One of the things when you manage people, they're messy, right? They have
Mhm.
feelings and good days and bad days. And as the manager or the boss, you're supposed to like, motivate them to get that thing done, whatever the goal is or the project. And working through people is just can be really frustrating. And so my husband he's an artist of his own. He's a photographer, works in digital media, natural subjects like birds and bees and flowers and all sorts of things. He doesn't want to ever work with people again. He says people are messy. So when we have an occasion to work with someone for something, or maybe you're working customer service person, you're like,
Mhm.
it's just frustrating, right? People are messy, and
Yeah.
systems made of people are messy and sometimes frustrating. So that's what my thought was.
Yeah, and it's interesting the color choices for this as well, because I understand the concept, I understand the title, I understand the design, but the colors almost tell me a different message, right? Yes, there's a little
Right.
chaos in there, but there's also this vibrancy, these greens, which is a very earthy color, blues with the water. So that just tells me that you're right. Yeah, people are messy. It's both ways. You can love them, hate them, whatever. They are who they are. It's a fantastic painting. It really is.
I am an extrovert and I need people in my life. And I love talking to other people about their creative works or their
Mhm.
ideas, what books they're reading, how they reacted to a movie. So my husband, being an introvert, doesn't feel that way. He says, "No, you're enough for me." And I tell him, "You are definitely not enough for me. I love you, but I need more people.
Yeah.
I need people to chat to." He's a terrible girlfriend, so I have to go out there and find other girlfriends and have other people to engage with on different pursuits. So
Right.
those colors, I think, communicate my love of other people's ideas and engaging with them in a joyful way.
And then we'll bring up one more here. This is the one. I paint a lot of fish, and I don't know why. I was never a fish person. It's just that seems to be what I paint a lot of. This was the one that I remember that I first saw uh, up on Facebook, and this was the painting why I reached out to you to have you on this,
Right,
because
I remember.
yeah, I mean this is a really really well done fish. You
Yeah,
know?
it's a fish in an
Yeah.
abstract sort of way. And this was the last one of acrylic April that I painted. I picked this one out of the lot of the 30 or so paintings because I love the colors and the energy it communicated. I
Hmm.
like just like with that wave, energy and fluidity of water, particularly waves that we are very common here in Hawaii. This fish had that same fluidity that I really like to capture on a canvas. And so I had a lot of fun with this. This one I freehanded. There was a traceable, but I wanted to give it a go. I'm happy with how it turned out. So I'm glad you responded to it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I mean, you captured it perfectly. You really did. It's a fish, and I know that that sounds like very trite when I say that, but it's a very well done fish. They're not as easy as people think. Fish are not as easy as people think.
I was losing you in volume a little bit there,
Oh,
John.
okay.
I appreciate all the very positive comments you had my way. I'm an unrepentant affirmation junkie. So and I've not really talked with anyone about my art. So I really do appreciate your compliments. They make my heart feel happy.
Well, they should, because you're very, very good at it, and I definitely encourage you to keep going. I'm really looking forward to seeing some other things that you're doing, right? And try the oils, try the watercolor, mix them all together, see what you come up with. So
Yeah, I'm doing a little bit of drawing lately. I'm taking some courses with it's actually nationwide, OLLI, Osher Lifelong Learning Institute, and they offer classes usually administered through major universities. So here it's UH Manoa, and people volunteer. There might be some sort of stipend for the teachers, but mostly they just do it. So I've taken a drawing class and an acrylics class.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're at all interested, they're very affordable, and you could access any class online anywhere through their system too, because a lot of them are online now because of COVID.
Right.
So drawing has been something that I'm exploring. So charcoals, graphite,
Right.
and I'm working on a logo for my husband's photo business. So it's a work in progress.
Yeah. So you're going to have to put a good word in for me with Jim then to see if I can get him on here, because I haven't had a photographer. Well, I have had one photographer, but we focused a lot. It was Paulina Fedorowski. I spoke with her about artificial intelligence and how a lot of artists now are using that in some of their design work. But to have a conversation with Jim might not be a bad idea. So maybe.
Oh, he loves to talk about his art, and he has done some really great pictures. In fact, they're all over this room, and as we find ones that we really like, and we produced them in a large scale. So I'm very proud of his work, and I've finally talked him into doing moving this in from a hobby into a business, because he loves to talk to people about his art, and he does a post on Instagram every day. He loves his subject, and it's something he shoots a lot of spiders and small creatures, bugs, really up close. So it's called macro photography. Anyway, I will talk to him, John. I hope he does talk to you, because I'm trying to get him out there. He's reluctant to engage, but he loves to talk to people about his art. Gets his phone out. He goes, oh, you gotta look at this one, right? And so, it would be fun to get him online. I'll let him know.
Awesome. All right. Well, it looks like that half an hour went extremely fast, which is what I kind of expected it would. So what's next for you with the art? Are you going to, where do you see it going for you? Just as a hobby?
My art?
Yeah. Or do you think you're going to take it to the next step?
I'm exploring a lot of different creative pursuits. I'm back to knitting, which is really fun. I picked that up when my kids were in elementary school. Drawing, doing some logos. I hope to do some portraits of my daughter's pets. Inspired by my friend Amy Baribeau, Amy Kokenauer, who I talked about.
Right.
And she has given me some tips, and she actually helped me work on Jim's logo too, because I was visiting with her in Asheville, North Carolina last week. So I just keep exploring new things, and eventually watercolors probably, and I don't know, I'm gonna do it for the joy of it. So I really don't, I think it's important for me who's always been so like goal oriented and very self-directed and intense in my pursuits that I don't get too intense with this, that I keep it joyful, and that I do it when I feel like it. And so I don't paint every day, unless in acrylic April, I got pretty close to painting every day, and that was cool to advance my skills. But I'm trying not to be too structured about it, because I think it's probably good for me not to be so structured.
That makes sense. Well, keep doing it. Like I said, it's been a pleasure speaking with you, and hopefully you'll come on again sometime in the future. My door is always open. My door is always open.
I'd love to. Thank you, John. And aloha, Christine, everyone online. It was a pleasure to talk with you today. I hope I gave you some ideas if you are thinking about pursuing this sort of thing. It's a joyful adventure.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tamara. All right, if you could just hang on for 1 second. Will
do.
Thank you so very much for joining me on the Art Talk podcast, where it's my goal to bring artists together to talk about their craft. If you'd like to join me for a conversation, please reach out via email at johncoleartist@gmail.com or by visiting my website at johnrobertcole.com. So until next time, keep crafting, painting, and inspiring others with your creativity. You make more of an impact